At the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's national event in Vancouver, I'm Duncan McHugh. On the National, I'll take you behind the scenes of this place to show you everything that's happening. But for our online viewers, I thought I'd introduce you to one woman that I met, a former teacher at a residential school who has an amazing story of reconciliation with one of her former students. Here's her story.
My name is Florence Kaefer. I had been brought up by a mother who believed that all people were equal, and where I was born in the Peace River country, I heard distant drumming. And when Reverend Ken MacLeod came to the Teachers College, he was looking for teachers for this new school, and I jumped at the chance. I taught at the United Church Indian Residential School in Norway House, Manitoba, and that was my first year teaching at 19 years of age. We had a big cement playroom with not even a bench in it to sit down, because it was a new school. There was nothing for them to do, and the Chippewayan and Cree children had been traditional enemies, so they didn't get along very well. And we had 3 toilets with 60 girls. So you spent most of your time being a plumber, and then you took them upstairs. They would get into their little beds, and I would read them a story. And I'm sure in those days it certainly wasn't culturally appropriate, the stories, because there weren't any culturally appropriate stories to read to them. But I would hear little sobs and crying amongst the children. And they must have been very, very homesick. But it didn't really strike me until I had children of my own.
Florence spent 3 years teaching in Norway House. She taught in other Indian schools before finally ending up in Vancouver Island, where she married and raised a family of her own. 5 decades later, she returned to northern Manitoba, where she happened to hear of a popular country singer named Edward Gamblin.
We stopped at a place called My Place on the highway going into the Paw, and there was one of his CDs called Cree Road. And I bought that, and I opened it up when we got to the motel, and in it he had written Survivor's Voice. And he told of how he had been culturally, psychologically, physically, sexually abused in the United Church Residential School. There was a phone number on the back of his CD, Cree Road. So I phoned Edward and I said hello to him, and I said, "My name is Florence Pocket." And he said, "I remember you. You were my teacher." And he said, "Some friends and our executive producer are planning a healing circle, and you're the sort of person we would like to have in the healing circle." We went to Edward's house, and he had a healing circle with the peace pipe. And I thought, I've heard about the peace pipe, how it was considered almost like a legal document in the early days when the native people smoked the peace pipe with the newcomers. That was a sincere promise.
Florence was there for Edward when his wife died, even there when he got sick and passed away himself a few years ago. She promised to carry on his message.
His message is that reconciliation is a process that happens on a one-to-one basis. That's the only way it can happen. So Edward and I reconciled. My message is that it's the most important thing in Canada today to correct the wrongs